Hey, everybody. Welcome to Oracle Fusion Unplugged. This is your host, Arun. We are on episode 3, and today we have an exciting topic to talk about. I have my guest, Randy Miller, and we're going to be talking about EPM Workbench. Randy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. Why don't we just start with yourself, your introduction, and maybe a little bit talk about how you started your journey in Oracle EPM?
Yeah, so a little bit background on me. I came right out of college, right into the EPM Hyperion world. It was my very first job, hopped right into consulting and just fell in love with it and really haven't looked back and jumped around from consulting firm to consulting firm. I was always more on the technical side. I just loved being able to write calculations and all of I started out with like PowerShell and automation and stuff along those lines. Back when it was like the Maxell days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I fell in love with the EPM and then continued forward. Ran an EPM practice, had about 10 people under me there, and then just in the last like 2 years, migrated a lot more into the ERP space. That was fun, but it's a lot different than the EPM
Of
world.
course.
And then just recently decided I wanted to get back into EPM and focus heavily back into EPM. So when I was on the ERP side, I built a couple tools for us. It got me back into like the application development, the coding side of the world. And when I started back on EPM several months ago, I realized one thing that had always frustrated me was Calc Manager. And so I decided earlier this year that, I was going to do something about it and try to make a better development life cycle of working with Calc Manager in your calculations and everything.
Interesting. Yeah, I know what you say when you say difficult to work with Calc Manager.
Yeah.
I spend most of my time on Groovy, less
Yeah.
on Calc scripts,
Yeah.
more on Groovy. And you're based out of Charlotte, North Carolina?
Yeah. I'm down in Charlotte. I'm originally from Ohio.
Okay.
Moved down here to get away from the cold weather. Then for the first 5 years I lived down here, every project I had was either in Chicago or New York City. So as much as I tried to get away from the cold winters, like they kept bringing me back. So yeah, definitely not a cold weather guy, warmer weather.
Awesome. So the tool that you built, and you're gonna show everybody, was it you was thinking of building it for yourself, or more like initially when you started, you're thinking more like as a product, or?
So it originally started out as just myself.
Yeah.
I had taken we built at my past life. We built a tool to help on the ERP side to help them write BIP reports. So it was they could, send SQL queries and get results. And it was like a web application. And so it saw how much it helped them.
Yeah.
And then when I started getting back into EPM, I was like, all right, well, I can build a web application to do very similar things, but just for Calc Manager. And so once diving in, I was like, I'm sure. And I showed a few colleagues and everything, like I would say the version 0.0 of this. They were like, they're sitting there like, I mean, this is fantastic. Like I have the same frustrations with Calc Manager, just simple autocomplete. You would think they would have that. Like when I have an application object or something and I want to see all the methods available, I don't have that. Right. Like, so I just talking with them, I was like, is this something, if I rolled out a full product like this, would be interested? And almost everyone I talked to said, yes, we would absolutely be interested. So it started out, I built a desktop application, full blown desktop application first, got about a month into it. And it's like, there's got to be an easier way. I feel like I'm over engineering this quite a bit. And so then I started investigating, Visual Studio Code extensions and realized like I can just leverage a lot of what VS Code has and just build on top of it, right? And so that's where we are now. That's where it came in as a VS Code extension. I got probably the initial we'll call it alpha release out back in May.
Yeah.
And I'd been already using it myself with current clients. But I released it to a few colleagues that I know well and I trust. And so they started using it, and we had several iterations of that. And then about 6 weeks, 7 weeks ago is when I started saying, okay, I think we're ready for like a full release. And then I think it was early August is when we actually did released it on VS Code Marketplace.
Yeah. I think I saw your post on LinkedIn, and that's why I connected with you. Awesome. So I will let you share, and we can go through the features functionality a little bit.
Okay, so let me share my screen here. Share. All right. So I'm just starting up on VS Code Marketplace. It's just one of the tabs on the left. If you
Yeah.
search for EPM Workbench, you should be able to see that. Um, and then this just gives you a lot of salesy type pitch,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
will. But
And for somebody who's looking at this for the first time ever, give us like a 60-second pitch on what EPM
yeah,
Workbench is.
so it's bringing EPM Calc Manager into like the modern development era, right? So when I have done some of those um, application builds for like the ERP side, we were building things in React and essentially JavaScript. Um, and I was using things like Cursor and VS Code and just realized like how much better that
Yeah.
development experience was than what we had in Calculation Manager, right? Um, and so that's what the whole goal of this is to one, bring that kind of modern development experience to EPM, to the Calculation Manager, as well as bring pretty much I tried to bring everything you might need when creating or developing a calc script or a Groovy rule in one user interface, right? So things like the API reference, right? I can't tell you how many times I've been developing a Groovy rule and I have like one screen open on the Java doc and then one screen open over here, and I'm having to jump back and forth. And so this just puts it in one place. And then my other big issue that I had was, especially being a consultant, right? I have 5 clients, 4 clients where, I have some support clients. I usually have one I'm focused on full time, and just having to like go put in the URL, then launch Calc Manager. And then like, if I'm doing 2 things at once, I'm like, okay, which Calc Manager am I in? Right. Like, that kind of context switching and flipping back and forth. And even if you're going like prod to dev or QA environments, like having that all in your one application makes switching easy. And then the last one I'll say is I have a ton of code that gets reused as I go client to client. Like I have a Groovy library, if you will.
Right. Right.
Um, and being able to very simply say, I have this template that I use that I take to every client, just being able to go there, right click and say like deploy to client,
Oh,
right?
oh,
And then it copies it into their workspace and then deploys it to Calc Manager. Um, so that was kind of a little bit of the background. And so what we do here is we bring that modern development experience. So you have things like autocomplete, right?
yeah.
So as I'm, you can see in this little video
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
going
Yeah. Yeah.
on. It's like as I type cube and then type the period, it shows me what's available, right? And in Calc Manager, you don't have anything
Yeah.
remotely close to that.
Yeah.
Um, so once you do install it, you'll get a new icon over here on the left. It looks like a little cube. And then this is kind of your initial screen once you have what we have called a pod set up.
Yeah.
So a pod is like within a domain, you usually have a production application and a test
Test.
application. So each one of those we just call a pod.
Yep.
I think Oracle uses the same term, but
Yep.
so if I click in the drop down, I see I have like my domain, and then I can have my different pods, right? So I can easily flip back and forth between a pod. So if I click now, I'm on like the Acme plan pro, right? Whereas if back down here, I have this EPM Workbench tester pod, which is purely just for this testing.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I want to go just add a new one, I can click add pod, and I can give it a name, whatever I want to give as the name. Otherwise, it just takes your application, um, whatever the is in the
Application name
URL.
is, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then I can paste like the URL. I can use a service account here. So I'll actually just go look at one that we have set up, right? So this is like my EPM Workbench tester. Um, so I just paste in the URL. It then goes and gets like what the actual pod name is from the URL. If it's a production or test environment, like what the domain is, the data center. You can set this up as a service account. So one drawback there is obviously any edits that you're making show up as one user. So if you have 3 consultants in here, we do have the ability to do OAuth, or you can do offline. So offline is you export a through
Snapshot.
migration, you export a
Okay.
snapshot, and then you can just import the snapshot. Um, and then it just shows you some things. If you do the service account or the OAuth, like you have full connectivity into EPM. So I can execute a rule right from EPM Workbench. I can pull the latest from Calc Manager. I can push, updated rules back into Calc Manager. It's however I want to do it. So you have that interactivity. Whereas if you just do offline, like it's back to really the copy and paste method, if you will.
But I
But
think
you
it still
get like
gives
the
you
full,
the the editor is obviously different, and you get.
yeah,
I'm assuming you get IntelliSense and auto
right. So
completions
once
and
even if you have the offline, you get the autocomplete, you get like the dimension lookups, you get the artifacts, um, everything along those lines. So you get the kind of the full functionality. You're just missing that connection. Um, but so if I come in and on the left hand side here, I have very similar to what you'd see in Calc Manager. I can see all of my rules.
yeah,
We've got the little icons, a coffee cup for
yeah.
Java, for Groovy rules. And then I don't even, to be honest, it's Claude picked that icon
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
The
No,
little
it's fine.
blue box for
Yeah,
calc scripts, right?
yeah.
Um, and so you have rules, you have templates, scripts, and then you have by plan type. So it's very familiar looking interface. I do have the ability to kind of search, right? So if I just search for alc like an allocation, if you will. So it'll search both the rule name and what's actually in the rule itself, which is nice. I use that quite a bit when I know I've used this member name or this something and I'm just trying to find it. So it's similar to like the right click find methodology in Calc Manager.
Will it look inside the script itself? I mean,
Yeah, it'll
okay.
search
Oh,
inside the
cool,
script
cool,
too.
cool. Very cool.
Um, and then you have the ability, like you can say, by default, it's set to all. So I only want to search file names, if you will, or I want to search within the calc. I do have that ability. But I mean, what's nice here, and one of the core tenets, if you will, and one of the main reasons, feedback I got initially early on, when I had like the web app first moving to this was, the IP, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So working with other consulting firms or even clients purely, I mean, they don't want us like as EPM Workbench to store this right? They want,
information. Yeah,
this is their details. So all
correct.
of this is truly just files on your local file system, right? So when after you import a snapshot or pull from EPM Workbench or pull from Calc Manager,
Yeah.
these are all just files locally. Um, and so if I open any one of these up, or I can create a new one. So we'll create a new one here. We'll create a Groovy rule, and then I just give it a name. So I'm going to call this demo Groovy 4. Uh, and then, so what's nice, what we've set up, I'm again trying to make this like quality of life improvements. So you'll
Yeah, yeah.
see I put this in almost every single one of my rules. So I can set up in the settings here to say whenever I create a new Groovy rule, always start it with this. Same thing with like calc scripts, right? So just simple quality of life
Yeah,
type
yeah.
things, right? Um, and then like, so now I have this um, application object, right? So if I just type in app and then hit dot, I have all of the available methods for
Mhm.
that application class.
Yeah.
And so I can do something like get connection and I just hit tab. And then this is another quality of life thing. These are my connections that I have defined in my
Very,
EPM
very cool.
application,
Very cool.
right? So I can just say, yeah, I want to use EPM local here. Um, and so like a lot of this is very similar to that. Like if I put, I'll show you if I do like RT, I'll say print line, um, RTPS dot, I'll say RTP scenario dot to string here, right? So it's going to throw me a warning as I'm finishing typing saying, you declared this this runtime prompt, but it's not declared in the header,
Right, right, right.
right? So I think I had a quick fix. Yep. So
There
you
you
can
go.
just do a quick fix and it just automatically goes up and adds it right to the header. And so now next time I do RTPS and I click dot, it has that
Yeah,
like
yeah.
available right to me.
Very cool.
Uh, and so like as you're going through, I mean, some of the other big things, like if I just hover over application, it gives me what the application object is, right? And so I can like right click on that and say show in docs. And over on the right hand side, it shows me the application and then all of the available methods that you can go off of application. And I click into any one of these
Right.
and I get the detail. If I want to know what connection is, I can click through that. So it's just embedding the whole docs right in here.
Yeah, yeah. This is so cool. Like the fact that it is instance aware, like, when you type to get connection, it is able to get the details of the connections itself. That itself is a big win.
Yeah. So,
Um,
so
reminds
when
me
we
of, how,
go ahead.
how we would do Python or JavaScript, right? Because it does this validations and
I mean, a lot of what we do um, is when we do like that import,
yeah,
this is all like I'll go to artifacts, for example. So we're doing more than just your rules. We're bringing in your dimensions. We're bringing in things like substitution variables, right?
right, right.
So right now, this is all read only. Um, future release, we're thinking about just modify it right here. But we have like your substitution variables. We have like your connections, and we tried to pull in like your smart lists, pretty much everything that you might reference in either a calc script or a Groovy rule. We pull in, and that's then available for some of this autocomplete, right? So even when I'm in a calc script, um, I have like access to, and I'll just show you real quick. If I'm like in here, and let's say instead of FY26, I just want to pull in a substitution variable, I hit the ampersand. Now I have access and it shows me kind of what that value is. Um, so if I want to bring in forecast year one, for example, right? And
Yeah.
so it makes life so much easier when you're
Yes.
doing things like this.
Oh,
And
yes.
I mean, just to like show you, if I like double square bracket, like I have all my smart lists in here. Um, and like I start typing in like status, right? So then I have my status smart list. Then it has all of the available values that I have embedded in that smart list.
Yeah.
So it's just things like you don't have to go back to the application, check, what my smart list name is, what my, entries are in that smart list. It's all here ready for you. And like what you should see is like I just hit enter. I don't have a member named sample in my application,
Right. Right.
right?
Okay.
So it's saying, hey, this is not a known member. It's giving me that feedback as I'm creating the
Right.
rule,
Right.
which is to me 90% of the battle, right? And so if I, another thing, like if I know somewhat what the name is, so if I just do an open quote and I just start typing in like ALC, like these are all member names that I have. So it has like member name auto completion, right? Now you can still do it wrong. I mean, this is just a full list of all of the members, so it's not focusing on any specific dimension or something, but I mean, it helps you. Like that's the whole goal here, is just to help you. And like
Would it
for
be
just
cool to
go ahead.
show the dimension also on the right? I mean, just something to, you may have already thought about this. Like when I type and I see a member on the right side, if you could just show the dimension. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're asking like if I have a member here, if I want to see the
It,
details of that member.
no, so when you put the double quote, right? And then you started typing and it showed you a list of members. Yeah. So on the right of that member in the list that comes up, also show the dimension. So I know, okay, this member is belonging to
Yeah.
this thing.
Sure. That's that's what I want, right? Like I that's perfect. I mean, that's something very simple that we could add. Um, but this does also do like alias. So I think if I do like revenue, like I have like other revenue. When I click that, so I found the alias and it replaced it with the member name, right? That's just like one of those nice to have things. And I've got people I've worked with who remain nameless, but if they see this, they'll know who I'm talking about them, who like to do all of their calcs in just pure like lowercase.
Yeah.
Um, and to me, that just drives me crazy. It's like it makes it harder to read. And then sometimes they'll use member names, sometimes they'll use aliases. And so all the auto completion here is always reverts back to the member name in the proper case of that member. Um, so it's just, I mean, it's personal preference. Like these are all like configurable. If you don't want it to do that, like it's in the settings, you can turn that on and off. Um, but I mean, a big thing here, if I go back to the Groovy rule here, right? If I just say, and like over on the right hand side, I mean, I have my runtime prompts. I can, select actual, and then I can just click the play button and hit execute. And so what this is doing, this is actually, I come back into EPM runs, it first checks, did anyone edit this rule in Calc Manager before the last time so it's trying to check, if John Doe's in there in Calc Manager and he changed something, let's make sure like we're merging those changes together. Um, and then it deploys to Calc Manager, and then it actually executes the rule, and I get the Groovy log messages right here I don't have to go to the job console. It's like another big painful thing. You go execute it in Calc Manager, then you got to go run to the job console and click 5 different buttons just to get what was written to the log, right? So right now, I mean, it's just the Groovy log console. We obviously don't have access to like calc script logs. It'd be great if we could get there, and if they do allow you to get that through the API, then we will certainly fold that in. Um, but I mean, if I do, well, another big thing is if I do like a runtime prompt that isn't recognized here, and I just click create, I am now creating this runtime prompt. I can pick the scope, I can pick the text, I can pick the dimension, etc., and click create right here. Then the next time this gets deployed, it will use that runtime prompt. This runtime prompt will now exist in the application. So you can create runtime prompts in here. So it makes it a lot easier to get up and going. Again, quality of life type
Yeah.
things. Um, so I'll just show a few more higher level items here. Like when you're in a calc script, I mean, it has like that fix and end fix. Like I can't tell you how many times I'm like going through. I'm like, okay, where's the end fix for this fix?
Yeah.
Right. And same thing happens with like if and end if. And then like if you do, this is probably my biggest one here. If I can find one of these rules that the formatting, so like you can see the formatting here looks funky, like it just misindentation and stuff. So if I just come in and I just click like Control S or Command S, depending on what you are, it reformats everything. So the formatter is fully built in.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, that's all configurable too. Like how many do you want spaces or tabs or how many spaces and tabs. And then it standardizes. You can set up like a standard for a given domain, and then it standardizes when it pushes. So regardless if you are pulling in, it'll show your preferences. If you like 4 spaces to a tab or 2 spaces to a tab, it'll show your preferences. But when we actually write back to Calc Manager, it standardizes everything. And that makes, doing differences, this versus a month ago, trying to see what that looks like makes that a lot easier.
Can that?
And so the last thing, I mean, in calc scripts, I mean, we do have like I don't like how this looks. This is something that we're going to be
Yeah.
updating very soon. But I mean, you have like the ability to see what's available. It'll give you the uh, parameters, and then it takes you right to like the Oracle documentation if you want to go there. So it exists on both the Groovy and like the calc script side. Um, but one thing, real quick, is and this is one thing I'm very proud of is our dimension viewer. Yeah. So I mean, I'm constantly jumping back and forth between like dimensions and calc scripts and stuff. So I'm gonna just close out of some of these real quick. Um, but I mean, if you've ever used like the dimension viewer inside of EPM, it's not the fastest thing in the world, especially if you have very large dimensions. I mean,
Yes.
you can offset that a little bit with Smart View, but Smart View only gets you so far. Right?
Yep.
And so I artificially created a 1.1 million member dimension here. And then I spent a significant amount of time making this as fast as possible. Right. So whether I'm searching, so if I search for Atlanta, like it searched all million members for Atlanta. Or if I search for just Canada, yeah, if I can spell it right. Yeah. But it shows me every instance where there's Canada either in the alias or in the member name. And it highlights all of those, right? And then here's the big one. If I do expand all descendants, now it's showing a million members and I can just scroll freely. I mean, going down and it's flashing probably a little bit, but I mean,
Pretty cool. Like the fact
yeah,
that you can search and find it that fast itself is, and obviously the view.
yeah. So I just recently provided the ability where you can pick and choose like what you want in your columns,
Yeah.
right? And it'll save, like if I always want to see my accounts, then however I set it up, if I go to a different pod and open the account dimension, then it'll show that same exact way, right? And I can do similar things like with my filters. I can do a filter on just show me like level 0 members that are never share, but actually have a formula, right? And so it helps with investigation into do I have something misconfigured, right? So rarely would you actually do this. In this case, we actually wanted that to be never shared. It's just a member formula that we calculate. But I mean, there's a lot of different filters that you can do. And future, what's coming is we're going to give you the ability to kind of save a view. So where if I always want to be able to just, have this filter set
Filter.
up, I'd have like another button here that's like saved views, and then it would just repopulate with those. Um, but I mean, this thing I show
Yeah.
like whenever I'm walking through a dimension with a client, like I do it in here because
Yeah.
it's just
This
so much easier
this is so
to,
much easier. Yeah, I
to
agree.
handle.
Totally.
And like you have access to all of the properties in here. And then you can see like member formulas if you've got those. Um, but all of this right now is just read only.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I tried to do. I went down the path of okay, let's allow you to edit some of
Yeah.
these, and it's just there's
So many. Yeah. 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 I think there's so many validations that you have to do.
right.
But
Like how do
it'll
you
be nice.
handle like moving members
Right.
and renaming members and stuff? So there's a lot to work through there. Not gonna say it's never gonna happen, but
Yeah.
it's so far if I have to do that, I'll just go to Smart View. A nice middle ground that we're working on right now is just being able to give you the ability to export. So you can export into like outline load utility format.
Right. Right.
Um, and so you could edit something here and then just click export and then you can take it on from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so I mean, my dimension editor, that took me a long time to get this
Yeah.
thing working. It's all virtualized and stuff like that. So there's a lot of work with Claude,
Performance. Yeah. No,
and a
performance
lot of this.
is what's important, right? Because if I'm not getting the performance while I'm viewing a long list of members, yeah, I'm gonna be frustrated. So,
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we wanted dimensions in there to give you the autocomplete ability, right? So these are just again, these are just um, they're gzip files that are stored locally on your machine. Again, we don't house any of this, and it makes it faster when you're actually in here if it's local, right?
yeah, yeah. Uh, do we have Git
Yeah.
integration? Yeah,
Yeah. So that was another thing I was frustrating to me is working with a lot of different consultants across a lot of different consulting organizations and sitting there and, someone changes something and I'm like, I know this was working last week.
yeah,
And no one's sitting there like you can't do like a to my knowledge, like a diff inside of Calc Manager to show me what was it like last week. So I sat there, VS Code, it's got native Git
Get integrated.
integration, right? So the way I've been setting these up is kind of per domain. I set up as a Git repo. And that way, if I come in here and I'm doing something and we've I've got it turned off. As you can see, I've got 689 changes, right? But we've got a setting, I think it's in the latest pre-release version, um, setting in there that's like auto commit. So it'll auto commit to its own branch, and then at whenever you want, you can merge all the branches back onto main. Um, but that way you're not sitting there like building up 689 different changes, right? But your source control is all built in. We use the native VS Code in here, so you can come in and say, "This is an update." Obviously, you'd want to give it a better commit message, but I can commit and kind of sync back up to GitHub, right? And so it has GitHub. It has natively has GitHub, and I think with VS Code you can do GitLab or a local Git instance, whatever you in your company prefers, right? Um, but that was one of the big driving changes that I'm trying to drive into the EPM community
Yes.
is like we don't have to live in the 1990s where you didn't have version control, right? You don't have to say I'm going to take copies of rules and store those locally, and someone changed something, I got to go look through my own personal blind copies of rules.
Yeah.
There's much better ways to do that in the
Perfect.
new
How many
world.
times have you done like before I make a critical change, take a backup of all the rules?
Exactly. Yes. I do that all the time. Like before I go make like a find and replace, I want to take a big backup of all the rules. Like you no longer have to do that, right? And just in like the VS Code, you have something called like a timeline. And so if I open, I don't have any of those rules open. If I come into one of these rules that I edit all the time, um, and we'll just do like this one, for example. If I go into the timeline, like I have like my own local history of like when I've saved something, like when I committed something to Git, right?
Yeah.
When I've done a local edit, and I can go back and look at like what actually changed, right? So in this one, we added in FY26 here, right? I took it. Apparently, in my test rule, I have it labeled both times, right? But and you get where
Yeah.
I hope I'm going here is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you don't have to live in Calc Manager, and you can do it all locally. Um,
One question I had, Randy, was if I make a change and when I push it, it directly goes into EPM, right?
yep. So there's two concepts we have. Or four concepts really. We have a poll, which poll means it's going to go to Calc Manager, pull whatever's in there, and then try to update locally. And it'll warn you if it's different,
Okay.
right? Then we have a push, which that just deploys right to, I keep saying deploys, that pushes into EPM Calc Manager. And we go in through um, like the snapshots, right? So like the LCM. And that pushes into Calc Manager. We have deploy, which that pushes into Calc Manager and it deploys it to the actual application. And then execute is essentially it does a deploy and then actually runs an API call to execute that rule and return whatever information you need.
Right. Right. Right.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
And so if I change something locally and then when I deploy, then as long as since the last time I communicated with Calc Manager, if nothing has changed, then it's just going to overwrite. But if someone or something changed that Calc Manager object, it's going to throw a merge, what I call like the merge handler. And what that allows you to do is see, what changed in Calc Manager and what I've changed locally and figure out how I want to proceed.
That's awesome. Like it's not blindly overriding stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it was the initial release, and that was like one of the first feedbacks that I actually did working with someone else, and they went and changed something, and I went and executed the rule locally, and like in EPM Workbench, and they're like, "Hey, I changed a few things. Like, I don't see it anymore." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, we should probably stop it from doing that." So we had
Yeah.
to do an update to handle that, and so that's where that merge um, the merge path came through. But uh, thankfully, their change, I had my own local Git, and I was able to go pull it back. So anytime we do an overwrite, we do actually take a copy of what was there, and that's like included in that Git chain, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. And people don't understand the power of Git. I mean,
Yeah, I mean
it's amazing to me that they
it's
still don't get that.
understand what it can do.
Yeah. How many times, I mean, how many times
Yeah,
I've used Git and then I did some changes and then it doesn't work. Then I'm like, okay, let me go back two merges back and then say, okay, you know what? Let me look at this one.
yeah, yeah, and I've gone to where I don't want to go all the way back. I just want to go like partially back, right? And so it's it's saved my behind many
Yeah.
times.
Many
I'll
times.
say
Yeah.
that, right?
Would it, like if I have test and prod, let's say
Mhm.
I have the same rule in test and prod, would I be able to compare the rule from
So
test to prod?
that's coming soon. That's something
Okay.
I'm working on and right now is being able to say, like, for example, I have two
Yeah.
under the same domain. I have two instances. Let's say one's production, one's test. I would be able to right click and say compare against test, right? As long as it's from the same domain and this rule is found in that other one, I would be able to compare.
Awesome. Yeah, that's gonna be so much helpful because you know how it works. You're gonna change something on one instance and it's not yeah, so that's gonna be really helpful. Okay. One of the other things I wanted to ask you is obviously none of this data is leaving the system. It's all stored locally. The credentials are stored locally, service account, and all is obviously saved here. So nothing is leaving. So from a customer's perspective, they can be sure that it's secure, right? Nothing is leaving.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So none of the rules, the dimensions, all of that is local to your machine. The credentials themselves, so if you're on like a Mac, we use like keychain, like it's and we kind of go through like the native VS Code secret storage,
Right.
if
Right.
you will.
Yeah.
And so the same thing happens on like the Windows or the Linux side. Um, so we, as like EPM Workbench, obviously we don't get any of that information. We don't know what URLs you're connected to or anything.
Right.
The only time you really connect to us is in two real instances. One, we validate that you have a full license, right? Or what license you have. And we run that check once every 24 hours. It just sends a little payload up and we're saying, yep, you're good. Um, and then the second is right now we have a local instance of the LSP. So when you install the extension, it brings like the language server, which does all the validations and everything. It installs that locally. But if you don't have Java installed locally, um, then it comes back to a hosted version. So
Okay.
in that case, it if you don't want to install Java, there's still a workaround there, which is in our documentation. So if you go into our documentation, there's like a workaround um, for using it like locally without having to install Java, right? So I don't know off the top of my head where it is in here. I think it's here. Um,
Yeah.
it walks you through like downloading, and all it needs is that JRE. So you just need the JRE, the Java runtime environment. You don't actually have to have it installed.
And AI. So I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions about, because you can bring, the customer can bring their API keys, and
Yep. So that was one direction I was heading, because I was like, oh, when I was on the web version, I was like, I'm gonna have to like write the harness and
yeah,
like contacting OpenAI or Claude or whatever it is, and you're gonna have to, essentially buy like inference through me. And I was like, I don't. That just seems
yeah,
like something I don't want to do.
do yeah,
But VS Code has extensions already for Claude and for Codex and for Copilot
Claude
and everything.
pilots.
So I can open up my Claude Code instance here, and it will, like, you can see it's already on my rule is giving it context. What we're actually building right now is skills that go with this. So how to utilize like the dimensions that we have stored offline, right? How to utilize the artifacts that we have stored offline, how to utilize like the documentation. It's just we have stored locally to you, so it can go know what the application is, right? And then we're giving it, you know, anti patterns and like use this, not this kind of things.
True, true.
Um, so there's rules, those skills, if you will, we're still in development. I'm still tweaking them, and those will continue to be tweaked. But I mean, your Claude instance, I've had to use this already. Like has because these are all files. Claude is in Codex, frankly, are very good at local files.
Hmm, hmm.
So these are all just rules in your local file system. Just point it at this and say go, right?
Yeah,
And it can.
yeah,
I mean, as long as you've got something there, though, that it can model off of, it does a pretty good job, I'd say. Um, I've had issues where I'm coming into the first rule I'm building and I'm saying, hey, go do this. And it's like, uh, right. But I mean, I got to steer it a lot then. And a lot of times I just go in and fix things. But once you have, a few rules in there and you kind of gets how you utilize Groovy inside of the EPM atmosphere, then it
yeah.
works very well.
I've seen, like, I don't know your experience. I've seen like Codex is much more like like one shot it would give me the correct script in Codex.
I mean,
Claude,
yeah, I've
yeah,
had Codex do the same several times. Um, Claude, I've building this extension.
yeah,
I've used Claude a lot more than Codex,
right,
but
right,
for like EPM specific things, like I've had a lot more success with Codex,
yeah, yeah,
I'll say.
yeah,
Um,
cool,
but I mean, I use them both, to be honest. Like I flip
yeah,
back
yeah.
and forth all the time.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I think, yeah, I have same experience because I use Claude a lot, but when it comes to Groovy script, I go straight to Codex. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I know we probably at time, but I just wanted to ask about what are some of the features that are coming? What's the future?
yeah. So I've touched on a few. I mean, one of our big releases, big items that I'm working on right now is that being able to compare dev to prod, um, and doing that not only on rules but dimensions as well, right? So being able to have like a full dimension diff, if you will, between two different pods. One thing that I've got in here that we're really refining is the ability to create your own kind of validation rules.
Right.
Um, so like, always having a fix with an end fix, right? Doing things like, you can't do a trailing comma within a fix statement because
Yeah.
obviously no one wants that. But then being able to create these things on your own
Right.
using in that way, like if I create one, I can give that to you because it's just like a JSON
Yeah.
file that's
File.
stored
Yeah.
locally. And then now you have that validation, right? Um, that's one of the pieces we've got. I'll say version 1 out there, but I want to be able to give um, more context, like being able to do like specific members. Like you can't hard code a year in there. You need to use a substitution variable, just like those standards, the
Hmm.
best practice type things
Yeah.
that you want to enforce across all of your pods or all of your, all of your projects going on, and being able to allow you to set that up. So that's one of that piece and the kind of the differences between a production and a test environment. And then obviously the AI skills are probably in the next month or so we're looking to release um, some more much future looking ones are doing like dimension editors,
Right.
um, looking into like being able to edit our substitution variables, our user variables, our smart lists.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, a lot of the recent, I'd say, minor enhancements that we've had to do have come from people who are using EPM Workbench and saying, just like, yeah, I mean, you did earlier, right? Where you were sitting there like, we had the member name autocomplete, and you're like, if you have the dimension there, that would help. A lot of what we have and have been released in the last 4 weeks has come from little
Yeah.
comments like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So it's the little things that as like one or two people we don't pick up on, but like someone else, it might bug someone else and they bring it up and I'm like, oh, that's,
Yeah. True. True.
takes me 30 minutes to fix,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, like, there's this. I don't know what you're seeing. Um, you put a lot of effort into building this, right?
Hmm.
And whether it is vibe coded using AI, I don't know. Sometimes people feel negative about you know building an app, vibe coded app. Um, I've seen few comments on your post as well, so that's why I'm trying to bring it up because there is value in building such products for the users, and I think for me that's what I look at. Right? Is there value in
Yeah. So, I mean, my view on it is I look at AI, it's not, you get the people who, try to like one shot an entire application or something. It's great. That might work
yeah,
for that one specific instance. But we are more becoming the architects rather than like I'm in there writing like
code? Yeah,
JavaScript,
yeah,
right? And I'm going to be honest, I thought myself very good at writing like JavaScript. I'm nowhere close to what a Claude or a Codex can do. And I would argue that there's very few, if any, people out there who are as good at as someone like Claude or Codex, because it's not just, you know, how good they are at writing JavaScript or something along those lines or VS Code extensions, whatever it is. It's they have they're an 8 out of 10 at that, but they're also a 5 or 6 out of 10 at security. Like I
yeah,
don't know a whole lot about doing like authentication or anything like that,
yeah, yeah,
but Claude does, and they're like a 10 out of 10 at like architecture and like database design, and so it's all of that rolled up into one. I mean, I sit there and when I go into a coding session, if you will, I'll open up Claude. I'll say, this is what we're going to do. I'll talk to him for, or him or her, whatever you want to call it. Talk to them for, 15, 20 minutes, kind of lay out what the plan is, and then like review with it and say, no, I don't like how we're going to do that. And I'll try to steer it how I want
Yeah.
it to happen. And then when it gets ready, it creates what we call like a PR if you've used GitHub, obviously, but it'll create a PR. And then, I'll say at the very beginning, I reviewed the code all the time, right? But I mean, they've gotten so darn good now. It's like, do I really need to read the code anymore? Right? Like, as long as I know enough to where I can steer it very well and it's got good direction and we're giving it good guardrails, like I've built up enough trust in these AIs that like I I don't need to sit there and babysit it anymore.
True. True.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree with that. I think the more time that you spend is obviously planning out the build, plus I think the testing, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Testing is the most important thing because you
Right.
know
Yeah.
what you want to get out of it, and security,
Yeah.
making sure. Yeah.
I mean, I would say the vast majority of my time now is up front, like planning it out, and then at the tail end and saying like, this is not the way I want it. This isn't working. This isn't working. It'll go back, make fixes, and then I'll come back and I'll retest a lot of it. So, and I kind of enjoy that because like a lot of times, like I would know how to do this, like to create like this table, for example. Um, if I wanted to create something like this, yeah, I could do it. And like being able to go here and have it like auto expand. But I mean, for me to do something like that, like I'd have to go read like documents and stuff like that. That would take me, a couple days. Like this, just expanding this, I did this morning actually
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
released it in the pre-release, right? So like it knows all of that, and it's just the speed at which you can develop things is crazy, to be
Yeah.
honest. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Honestly, yes. Um, and just because you're showing this and because you mentioned do a lot of changes, I want to still emphasize on the fact that GitHub Git is
yeah.
so useful.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, all of this is in like Git repos. Like
Yeah.
I I have it like very frequently do commits just in case I need to roll something back. I mean, it's fantastic. I wish the Git would come into the EPM world and those two would merge. Like I feel like it would make everyone's life a lot easier, to
Easier.
be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. All
We
right.
didn't talk about the pricing. If you want to touch upon the pricing, Randy,
Yeah.
that's
So
okay.
right now, I'll just quickly go over it. I mean, so we've got pricing out there. Um, so we have a free tier, which is, and everyone who signs up basically gets a 30-day free trial and they get full access for 30 days. And then we have a free tier, which is you get all of the autocomplete and everything along those lines, but it's really just a single file. So it's more for like the copy and paste, if you will. Um, and it's got the syntax highlighting and all of that. And then we have, if people just want to stay offline, they want to manage it themselves, they want to do their own imports, their own exports, you still get the AI when we release those skills, that'll come in through the offline. And then the full, which is, um, you get everything a lot of what we demoed today. You get like the full push and deploy and everything. And then obviously, like I'm working with several consulting firms right now. We're still, very early on. So I've got one who's committed and who's has licenses for their team. I've got one who's in their trial period. And then one I just met with last Friday, who I'm hoping to bring them in as well.
Okay.
But so like talking with them, like obviously, if there's like a bulk discount, they
Yeah.
purchase, 10 or more seats, like I can work with them, right? I'm not some big conglomerate or something. I'm just Randy
Yeah.
Miller, right? So I'm willing to work with you, right? Yeah,
Awesome, awesome. I have to say, I've installed it. I was waiting to talk to you because it's easier to see what you're doing and understand what everything is and how it works and things like that.
yeah,
Now I'm gonna go and try, right? Uh,
yeah. Please
and
hop
yeah, I'm
in.
I'm happy to share my feedback. But so far, whatever I've seen is amazing. The fact that it is instance aware, like it is looking at your specific instance and it is able to highlight things for you. It's just amazing. And Git integration is another feature that I like. The fact that you have the docs in the side panel, that's just amazing, especially Groovy because the Groovy documentation is just, there's a lot to improve.
It's
Let's
a
just
lot.
say that.
Yeah. Yes. I
so,
agree.
so yeah. So,
Yeah.
Pranit, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for showing us the tool, and I
Absolutely.
and I honestly wish you the best. Hopefully, this picks up and people
Yeah.
start adopting this.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me on here. This was a, an enjoyable hour or so that we got to talk through. I love nerding out on stuff like this. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So just so you know, I was building something more like an admin app, not necessarily Calc Manager. It was just an admin app which would just give you the diagnosis of the app, show you the user variables, substitution variables. You're able to update everything. So I have that in preview preview mode,
Yeah.
internally
Well,
testing. Yeah, I'll let you in and show you as well.
yeah.
And
I would love that.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I I had thought originally like going like a whole encompassing thing, but I mean, to be honest, I was like, I just want to focus on
yeah,
Calc Manager
yeah.
and try to do that as best as I
Best as
can,
possible. Yep, definitely.
right? And so that's right now the EPM Workbench is focused fully on, I'll say Calc Manager and for me, like dimension exploration, I'll
Yeah,
say.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. I
Right?
love it. I love it. I'm gonna now go and try it out.
Absolutely. Well, certainly reach out if you've got any questions or anything. I'm happy to
Yeah,
hop
of
on a
course,
call.
of course. And I will obviously let you know whatever I find, any feedback, suggestions I have. Um, to everyone who's watching, I would encourage you to try it out, right? Because as you mentioned, it's free for you to use and you get 30 days of premium. So try it out and I'm very confident you will like it. Um, so yeah.
Yeah.
So
All
Randy,
right.
thank you so much. This
All right.
was
Thank
great.
you.
And, we will probably connect
Okay. Yeah.
sometime
Sounds
later.
good. All right. Thank
All
you.
right. All right.